Welcome everyone to the March meeting of the Planning Committee. Can I just do a few introductions for members of the public in the gallery? I'm Brian Morby, I'm Chair of the Planning Committee. On my left is Norman Jones, who's Team Leader in the Planning Department. On his left is Paul Wielden, who's Head of Transportation. Rebecca McAndrew over there is a planner, and we will be presenting one of the applications. On my right, Rachel Beale, who's Clerk to the Committee, and on her right is Tim James, who is the Assistant Chief Legal Officer, and down here is Gemma Evans, who's here for item number 5, I think it is. She's Head of Enforcement. These are members of the committee, and obviously you know who you are, and you know Gwynaira Clark, the member for Abersycon. Well done, Nigel. Just missed the intros. Never mind. I'm not going through them again. Can everybody please remind themselves or take note of the fact, if you didn't already know, that this meeting is being webcast. So be careful, please, to speak appropriately and when asked, and just to be aware that you may be on camera at almost any time. Okay, so can we go on to item 1, which is attendance and apologies. We have apologies from Councillor Stuart Evans. Are there any others, please? Councillor Siebel.
Councillor Len Constance and Councillor Alan Furzer.
Thank you. Any others? I think that's probably it. Good. Declarations of interest. Members, anybody wish to? Well, let's ask Tim to prompt you, shall we? Tim.
Thank you, Chair. Yes, a number of declarations I've spoken to members about, Chair, and if I could just run through those. Firstly, Councillor Parish, Councillor Taylor, Councillor Tomlinson and Councillor Keith James, in relation to items 6 and 8 on the agenda, those are applications where Pontypool Community Council were consulted. You're all members of that Community Council, and on that basis I believe all of you wish to declare personal interest. Is that correct?
Correct.
Thank you. And then Councillor Stuart Ashley and Councillor Powell, Jessica Powell, item 7 on the agenda. That is an application where Cwmbran Community Council were consulted, and again I believe you both wish to declare personal interests as members of that Community Council. Is that correct, please? Yeah. Councillor Ashley, yes, thank you. And then one other declaration, members. Councillor Waite, item 8 on the agenda. I believe you wish to declare personal interest in relation to that application, as you have a relative who is a member of a club that sometimes uses the facilities at the application site. Is that correct, Councillor Waite?
Yes, that is correct.
Thank you. Can I just remind all members that they should complete the declaration form which is going around with the attendance register. Thank you, Chair.
Thanks, Tim. Okay, can we go on to then item 3, the minutes of the planning meeting held on the 10th of February, page 5. I'll run through it page by page for accuracy, please. Page 1, or rather page 5, let's say. Thank you. We're rescinding the apologies that were given on your behalf. Page 6. Page 7, page 8, nine, 10, 11. Are you all happy that these are a true record of the meeting held on the 10th of February? Grand, thank you very much. Anybody wish to raise any matters arising from those minutes? No. I have a matter which I need to raise in relation to the minutes. It's been brought to our attention by Pontier Community Council in relation to paragraph 6.4. That the minutes are incorrect in relation to application 14/20 P/00448, when it was stated that the community councillors had signed a petition against the application. However, we've checked the webcast and can confirm that the person concerned, the agent, made the statement that community councils had signed the petition, but the planning department has made further inquiries and have subsequently informed us that that particular statement was factually inaccurate. So the minutes are correct in terms of that was an accurate record of what went on. What we do need to do, I think, is note in these minutes of this meeting that the statement made by the agent was factually incorrect and make it clear that we are now advised that no community councillors had signed a petition against the application. You happy with that? Good, thank you very much. Those of you who have read the minutes with discernment and will have noticed that on the 10th of February we also approved the minutes of the meeting held on the 8th of January. So the next item, item 4, which is the minutes of the meeting held on the 8th of January, we can forget about because we've already dealt with that item of business last time. So we'll move on to item 5, which is the report for information on the draft direct action protocol. Gemma, do you wish to say anything? Nope. Thanks. Okay. For information, if you've got any, because this decision is being taken or will be taken by the executive member for planning and whatever, public protection, I think it is, and something to do with housing, I think, Councillor Clark. But obviously, if you've got any observations, then I'm sure Councillor Clark would be happy for those to be recorded and reported to her before she makes the decision. There are a couple of drafting errors. This is a draft. There are a couple of drafting errors in the algorithm which will be corrected prior to the executive member making that decision. Does anybody have any comments on the report? So you're happy to commend it to the executive member as it stands? Yes? Subject to those drafting corrections. Okay, thank you very much. I suppose you better say more than just yes. Can you raise your hands? Yeah? Thanks. Okay. Thanks for that. Item 6 then is an application in respect of the former Carmarthen Brewery premises, Carmarthen Works, Pontypool. Rebecca McAndrew will be making a presentation. Thanks.
Thank you, Chair. Thank you. The application is to demolish the existing listed building Grade 2 in Carmarthen. I should start off by saying that Pontypool Community Council stated no objections to the application. That was missed out of the officer report. So as I said, the application is to demolish the Carmarthen Brewery, which is a Grade 2 listed building. Located in Carmarthen Conservation Area and within the boundaries of the World Heritage Site. The building was damaged in a fire in 2012 and the roof was lost and the internal elements of the building in that fire. A plastic recycling company operates at the site at the moment that employs 50 members of staff. The application states that the applicants wish to demolish the building, although it's currently stable, they're concerned that it could become a safety issue if it's left to deteriorate any further. And they state that the demolition of the building would allow for a potential future development and expansion of the business. In terms of policy, Planning Policy Wales states that there should be a presumption in favour of the preservation of listed buildings. Local Planning Policy, the LDP, seeks to conserve historic assets. This includes listed buildings, the amenities of conservation area and the World Heritage Site. And then another key consideration is Welsh Office Circular 6196, which sets out the criteria against which we must consider any proposal to demolish a listed building. Now, all of those policies are detailed in my report. We've received objections from the amenity societies in respect of the proposal. This includes the Victorian Society, Glamorgan and Gwent Archaeological Trust and the Ancient Monument Society. They all recognise the historic significance of the building and consider that the application does not meet the policy requirements and the criteria in the Circular 696, which relate to the demolition of listed building, impact upon the conservation area and the World Heritage Site. Therefore, on balance, it's recommended that consent be refused on the basis of lack of a redevelopment scheme has been submitted in support of the application. The viability assessment for the proposed demolition is based on the full reinstatement rather than mothballing of the building, the unacceptable harm to the conservation area and the impact upon the integrity of the World Heritage Site. And I'll just talk you through some photos of the building for those who were at the site visit. So this here is the view from the north down to into the site from the main entrance. So you can see the main brewery building in the background with the office building in the front. So it's proposed to demolish this front building and the brewery building to the rear. Here's a closer view so you can see sort of that architecture detail that the amenity societies were thought quite highly of. And there's a little picture down there of the brewery in its full glory. And then this is a photo taken from the southern part of the site looking north. So there again you can see the brewery building sort of towering above the site there. And then this building here, I think that's from the south as well. Back to that. The applicant's agents have submitted a letter yesterday, which I think has been circulated to all members of the committee. So I'll just go through and pick out the key issues to highlight. They consider that the reason for refusal focuses heavily on the heritage of the building and the loss thereof, and doesn't take adequate account of the economic, health and safety and operational reasons in case of a demolition. I suppose in response to this I would say that the key criteria in assessing this proposal are those criteria in Circular 6196, so that's been our key consideration, which took into account those issues. And then coming on to the next page then, the agent raises concern about the lack of formal feedback and interaction with officers during the application process. I have to say we've had lots of discussion, we've had meetings, we've had emails, letters going back and forth, all consultation responses and objections to the application have been forwarded to the agent. So I would contend that actually the agents and their applicants were well aware of the officers' concerns about the application. Then we go down that they note that the application has demonstrated that renovation and reconstruction works would have significant negative impacts on the operation of the businesses on the site, resulting in a significant loss of jobs and trade and impact on the local economy. So just wanted that to be noted. They go on to comment that no formal response has been received from ICOMOS. It is therefore questionable whether the significance of the building is such importance to them to give for their lack of response. We understand the ICOMOS group met last week and they only meet, I believe, on a quarterly basis. So we're still awaiting that response, and I don't think their lack of response infers what is said there. The letter also raises concerns about a lack of consistency between the different bodies and in respect to the prominence of the building. So I think one person said there's one consultation response says it's not very prominent, but other responses say that it's a landmark building, a striking feature in the landscape. And the applicants have asked for it to be noted that there's long-term significant benefits to the community, and the proposed works will serve to protect the long-term futures of the employees. This is, of course, a site which has been in employment use for a significant number of years and will continue to be for the long-term future. So that's the agent's response to the committee report. And then we've also received some comments from Councillor Tomlinson. He says, I note the recommendations to refuse the application on the report, planning and guidance and Welsh Assembly procedures on listed building consent. I understand the heritage value here also. Planning on refusal state that the owners have not, it seems, come forward with a proper business case or a credible plan. In this case, could I ask for this application to be deferred to allow the owners to come back with a proper business case? Thank you.
Thanks, Rebecca. I think the first thing we probably need to do is, notwithstanding that Councillor Clark is able to speak in respect of this application, is ask Councillor Tomlinson whether you wish to pursue your suggestion made, as referred to there, to defer this item for further consideration to be given, A, by the applicants and then B, by the committee in due course.
Yes, I would prefer that, to be honest, because I think, looking throughout the report, I think there's a lot of issues there. I know in respect to the heritage issues, how heavily they weigh on this application, but I just feel also, in the case of the applicant, I think maybe, I think there's a lot of issues around the money aspect of it, or whether it's the case that probabilities where they may be able to try to raise the extra monies available, probably. But I just feel that rather than see this application go to Cadwa, if it's approved, or possibly the applicant might appeal, and it might go down that route as well, I just feel that possibly it could give the applicant more time to come back with a more credible financial plan to back this up. So that's the reason I'm asking for referring.
Thanks, Councillor Tomlinson. I'm taking that as an amendment that we defer this particular consideration for today. Is that seconded?
Chair, could I just some clarification on this this issue? Is that an appropriate reason to defer? Just some guidance, really, from the officers on it, I suppose, for the applicant to come back with further information on a business case, effectively.
Well, it would be entirely up to the applicants if we did defer whether or not they decided to do that. But it's a matter for this committee to decide whether or not it would wish to support Councillor Tomlinson's suggestion, which is made in front of the applicants, that they should do more to demonstrate that they can manage this with perhaps a different outcome in some sort of compromise way.
It's just the question was whether it is a legitimate reason for us to to defer the application, whether it's just some guidance on that, Mr Chair.
Well, my feeling
I appreciate the point that you make, is whether or not it is legitimate for us to defer on that basis.
Well, I think that's the decision for the decision makers to determine, which is the committee, but I'm quite happy to seek a view on that.
Thank you, Chair. Yeah, as you'll see, the application has been in for some time. There's been quite significant discussions. Obviously, the applicant is aware of the recommendation and the contents of it in terms of the costings. There is mentioned of the cost of refurbishment of the building. With that in mind, obviously, they could have asked for the application to be deferred for consideration at this point and haven't done so. So I think it's probably legitimate to continue at this stage, Chair.
Fine. It's still a proposal which has been put to the committee, and we'll see it through. Is Councillor Tomlinson's proposal that we defer seconded? Because if not, it falls and we'll simply continue. I'm taking that as not being seconded. Sorry, Councillor Tomlinson. Thanks. So, in which case, then we are going to try and make a decision today. So, Councillor Clark, would you care to come and speak to your presentation, please? Okay, thanks very much. All speakers to the committee on applications have a limit of 5 minutes, which is pretty strictly applied. So, Councillor Clark, as soon as you're ready, please, comfortable, would you commence?
Yes, thank you, Chairman. Thank you, members, for allowing me to do a 5-point PowerPoint presentation this afternoon. With your permission, Chair, I have some flyers here I can pass around to the members while the presentation is going on. Okay, I think the first slide, obviously, you're aware of the site. We visited the site at a site meeting recently, and unless you visited the site, you can't really fully understand the difficulties that the owners of the works beyond that building are faced with. It's quite a narrow site, and while we were waiting to go in and to come out, there was a build-up of lorries, and it wasn't orchestrated for that day because obviously they were there to pick up and deliver things to the factory. Can you go on to the next slide? You might wonder why I'm going to be showing you other buildings that perhaps are not related to the Westlake site, but it's something I think you need to be mindful of when you make a decision here this afternoon. Obviously, you can see the demolition and the detention of the building, what that would mean. So if you could go to the next slide, please. This is St Thomas's Church, Tallawain. It's a listed building. It's within metres of the nearest housing development to the front and to the back. It's been like this now since 2004. It's a Cadwa listed building. There's no likelihood that it will ever be in other than in the state it is, and in fact it will deteriorate. Okay. This is the cooperative building. Again, this was a building that employed over 100 people in its heyday. As you can see, the building has been empty since 1995. And again, it's creating havoc for the people that actually live there, within yards of this building. And we have a church, we have an aerial renewal scheme that was done a few years ago that did all the cottages in the area, which look really wonderful, and yet they're faced with this building. It will remain like that until it actually down on the ground in just bricks and mortar on the ground. And again, it really is a dangerous site. Okay? This is just further up the street from that building. And the reason I'm showing you this, it's all very well to protect buildings, but unless we can secure the funding to maintain these buildings, this is what's going to happen. In reality, this is what we face with every day. Okay. Thank you. These are 3 listed buildings, Cadw listed buildings. And if you see the one on the far right, that's resulting now in a lack of funding. It really is horrendous. We're having to look at this every day of our lives if you live in that community, which I do. Okay? 4 of the buildings on there are listed sites. Most of them have deteriorated so bad that the only way forward is demolition. Okay. And we come back to the Westlake Brewery. It's entirely up to you how you manage this. Their fate is in your hands. There are 50 people employed at this site. As you know, we've debated jobs and investment in the far north of the borough many, many times in this chamber. What are we going to do about it? We have to safeguard those jobs. And the only way we can do that is by investing in the site. And I don't mean investing in that building, I mean investing in the business behind there. If we don't give the owners the opportunity to do that, who knows what might happen? They could pull out. 50 jobs would be lost.
1 minute left, Councillor Clark.
Thank you very much. We can't really afford to lose 1 job, let alone 50. And I'm just finishing off by saying, ICOMOS representatives, their comments, for those of you who've never seen the site, you can hardly see the site off the road. That doesn't mean to say we should demolish it. But you need to look at it to see what benefit it would be to any visitors in Torfaen when you can hardly see the site. It's obvious the authority hasn't taken into account the possible job losses. And if they have, then I've yet to see where they've done that. This business has to extend to survive. Cadw, I honestly believe they have a draft ready for whatever comes their way. It seems as if with them, it's a one-size-fits-all, as you've seen by the result of the PowerPoint presentation today. There's no money that comes with a listed building. Cadw will list a building, but no money comes with it. And we've seen the result of what happens there.
That's time.
You have the opportunity
now,
to
Speaker,
stop the rot now. If you can't do this at this stage, then I would ask for a deferment. Thank you, Chair.
I think it would be helpful if, particularly in view of what Councillor Clark said about this matter being in your hands, if Norman just explains the process with regard to listed buildings demolition, if that is to happen. Norman?
Thank you, Chair. As you see in the background in the report on the first page, we as a local authority only have powers to refuse this application, which is one for listed building consent, and that's the same for all listed building consent applications. If members are minded to approve the application, we will have to refer that to Cadw, and Cadw will then determine whether to go along with the committee's recommendation to approve with the appropriate conditions, or they can refer it to Welsh Government, who may have the opportunity to call it in. So if members find that they recommend that they wish to overturn the recommendation, it is then referred to Cadw. If it is refused at this meeting, we have the powers to issue the decision notice, and obviously the applicants would have the right of appeal against such a refusal. Thank you, Chair.
So either way, it will effectively go to Welsh Ministers, Cadw. So, anyway, but back to the debate. Rebecca, anything you wish to say, please?
I just wanted to say that to remind members that the National Planning Policy directs local authorities to preserve and enhance the historic environment. There's a presumption in PPW in favour of the retention of listed buildings, preserving or enhancing conservation areas, and local authorities, it's directed that they have to carefully consider the impact of any proposal upon a World Heritage Site. While some of those buildings, as we see, do remain empty, as a local authority we should be working towards bringing them back into use and conserving our historic environment. Unfortunately, the economy suffered in recent years. Hopefully this will pick up in the future and some of these empty buildings can be brought back into use. And just that once a building's demolished, it's lost forever and we can't ever bring that history back. Thank you.
Okay, members, over to you for debate, discussion. Councillor Furzer, please.
Yes. Thank you, Chair. I can sympathise with Councillor Clark on what she said, because we've got similar buildings in Blaenavon, and they're just going to fall down eventually. The old hospital is the one building, for example, privately owned, but it's a listed building, and nothing's been done to it for years, and it's an eyesore, and it will eventually just fall down. And similar to what exists in the Aberystwyth Ward. So I can understand exactly where she's coming from there.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Cameron.
Thank you. Well, I went to the site visit, and I must say I didn't think actually that it is very prominent from the road, but that's beside the point. I wonder if you can just clarify a couple of things. On page 42, the top paragraph, it says, where it says the local authority has no further jurisdiction, and Welsh Minister Cadw, should that have gone on? Or? Should it have said what he can do?
Chair, for me, I think the sentence should stop at has no further jurisdiction.
Right, that's the one thing. And in the one thing that I found most difficult to get round was on 6512 on page 45. The last paragraph there really says we should not authorise demolition of historic buildings to make way for new development unless it's certain that the new development will proceed. Well, there's not even a plan in this case. There's nothing to say that they intend doing something with it. The only thing I found in that paragraph, it referred to grade 1 and grade 2 star, and this is neither of those. Where are we with a normal grade 2?
Yeah, that policy applies to all grades of listings, so we would expect a reinstatement scheme to come in with any demolition application for a listed building. There was reference in the application to in the future we would hope to come in with it, but I think it's difficult for us as officers to recommend approval on the lack of reinstatement, which is mentioned in the reason for refusal. Thanks.
Thanks, that was my feeling, so that is what you meant.
Thanks. Anyone else? Councillor Parish?
Yeah. We can all sympathise with Councillor Clark. I mean, we know how precious jobs are and to bring more jobs to the area. But I think the applicant should have thought about that before submitting the application. And if they want to change their minds in the future, they can always submit another application. I know it's not up to me to say that, but that could happen. But reading the report, I find it very difficult for members to do anything but refuse this application. You know, the conclusion and recommendation, just reading that in itself, I'd find it very, very difficult to do anything but refuse the application in its present state. Thank you.
Councillor Ashley?
I'm inclined to agree with previous councillors said. The other thing is industrial heritage. If it was a castle, not industrial heritage building, we wouldn't be hearing this argument. The point is that it is what it is. It's extremely rare. I can't think of any other building outside of Cardiff like this.
Councillor Crick.
I must admit, thank you, Chair, when I was reading this, I was thinking of buildings that one sees as one goes around the UK. And there are many, and some of them have been able to be successfully transformed. This is in a very out-of-the-way location. I have concerns, as it's quite clear other members do, about the future of the business which is being operated there at the moment. Even if these buildings were taken down, what would be the future of that business? Is the site the right one for that type of business? It's not clear from any of the information that we've received. It's on a road which is known for having access problems. There are obviously lorries going backwards and forwards to the site because of the type of business that's there. I think if we were brought an application to extend that business, we would have grounds for concern because of that. When it comes to looking at the building and what's needed to be done, it's not entirely clear. There are a number of figures which are bandied about in terms of what it needs to have done and how much it's going to cost. There's the queries over the insurance. There's a lot of grey areas which aren't clarified. Where I live, we've 2 buildings which have been or were semi-derelict for many years, the mill at Lanneravon and also the manor. But they were not in private ownership. It meant that the local community council and Torvine were investing by drip feed for many years before the grant was made available for the manor to be changed, and that has had a significant impact on our area and on the small business which is now taken over. The mill continues to be dealt with by local people on a voluntary basis, but that's quite different to what's going on here, where it's a business site that's operating. It's owned by a local business who are obviously at their wits' end. But I'm not sure if whatever we decide today will actually resolve that problem. So on that basis, I'm minded to go with the recommendation.
Anyone else? Sean, are you ready to vote? Anybody going to move anything? Councillor Cameron?
I'll move the officer's recommendation.
I'll second the recommendation.
It's been moved by Councillor Cameron, seconded by Councillor James, that we support the officer's recommendation, which is to refuse the application, which means that obviously the applicant, in the event that you vote in favour of that, will have to consider whether or not to appeal. All those in favour, please show. 2, 5, 8, 10. That's 11. All those against, please show. That's 1. All those who are abstaining. That's Councillor Williams. Right. Okay, well, the motion to refuse is agreed. Thank you very much. Thank you. Thank you, Rebecca. We're on to item 7. Try and find where it starts. Which page? Here we go. Item 7 on page 75. The new family kebab restaurant, 2527 Victoria Street. There's not going to be a presentation in respect of this particular item, so it's open to members to ask questions and debate. Anybody want to kick off? Councillor Cameron.
Sorry, I'll be first again. Put my neck on the block. I attended the site visit with this, and it was made clear then, because of the proximity to the houses backing onto the establishment, that there was to be no amenity use of the roof, and that there were to be 2 staircases. Now, they've actually done exactly what they were told they couldn't do. So, again, I think with this one, we don't have any choice but to recommend that we go with the officers, the recommendation, of the officers, and bearing in mind that we've just talked about the direct protocol, we've got the perfect tool to say that they must do it.
No.
If I can come in. Yes, basically we've attached conditions requiring them to amend the means of enclosure around the roof area. They are, as Councillor Cameron has said, that roof area is very close to those properties on Ventnor Road. If we grant, if the recommendation is accepted, then there's no right of appeal against the condition, or they can apply to remove the conditions. However, it's an easier process in terms of enforcement action in relation to that. And also, as well as the amenity area, there is the issue of the refrigeration units in terms of the noise and ensuring that those are properly enclosed. Thank you, Chair.
Okay, anybody want to debate it? Ready to vote? Somebody move something, please.
I move we
approval of the officer's recommendation and the conditions
Yes.
attached there too. All those in favour, please show. It's unanimous, thank you. Item 8, which is demolition of existing corrugated buildings to the rear of the Great Western Railway Club. There is an amendment that needs to be made on page 86 to the second paragraph, which is basically to say that the last sentence of that paragraph is inaccurate and can be deleted or amended. Norman, do you want to amend it rather than delete it?
I would delete it, Chair. Apologies for that error. There is an area adjacent to the building that's going to be demolished, which can accommodate parking. It is an informal parking area, however, so that statement is incorrect in the report. Thank you, Chair.
Okay. Does anybody member have Does any member have a question or comment? Councillor Ashley.
I read the dialogue in there about the corrugated iron building which will be taken down. I have somewhat of an interest in these. Could you elucidate of the historical importance and what you will note on that? It was really interesting reading that.
Yeah, I didn't really follow that. You're interested in the roof?
No, there is a corrugated iron building which is currently the back building there. I didn't go on the visit, I'm sorry to say, if there was one. But there are quite a lot of historical corrugated iron buildings around the place. That's it. I accept that it has to be taken down as part of the development, but there are a lot of the buildings being taken down because obviously in a state of dilapidation, which that one is. What's the historical importance of it? There was quite a lot in there about it.
In terms of the corrugated building, it's just seen as a functional extension. Our conservation officer has investigated or commented on the scheme as a whole, and in terms of the front building, which the the main institute building, then that is considered a building worthy of protection and possibly listing. However, given the substandard nature of the corrugated building, that isn't considered of such historical importance that we wouldn't allow that to be removed. Chair.
Thank you. There. It was just that there was a note in there which I was intrigued by. That was all. Thank you.
You could perhaps buy it if you wanted, Stuart, I suppose.
I rather like corrugated buildings, but allotments, as you see.
Okay. You'll also notice, members, that the highways officer isn't entirely happy with the parking arrangements, but nevertheless the recommendation is that this matter be approved. Anybody want to comment on any of that? Councillor Parish.
A comment. Yes, the Fighting Fit gym is very successful, and because it is successful, they obviously need more space. I wish my colleague would go and look at the corrugated part of this building. I don't really think anyone would want to conserve that. Looking at it, it's going to deteriorate and be an eyesore. The part of the original building, there are plans, this report does say there are plans for that for the future, which I'm pleased about. There are restricted parking places in this area, and I can understand the Highways Officer's concern, but this comes up every time there's an application in this part of Griffithstown, and yet people seem to manage, even with the restrictions. They just seem to cope with it. And I would myself move that we approve with the conditions and the Section 106 agreement as stipulated in the report.
That's been moved then. Is that seconded, please? It's seconded, so okay, we'll debate it still. Nigel?
Yes, thank you, Chair. I'd just like to ask a bit of clarification about the condition 10, which seems a little bit, which doesn't needs to be explained a bit. This permission is subject to the obligations as set out in the submitted unilateral undertaking dated XXX. Could you just say what that is, please?
The reason for that is that the unilateral undertaking hasn't yet been finalised, so that date is left blank, as the report says. Is the unilateral undertaking will basically replicate condition 2, linking the proposed facility to the Fighting Fit gym, which is just up the road. So that unilateral undertaking is yet to be finalised and submitted, and the decision wouldn't go out until that was the case.
Any other questions or comments? Ready to vote? Okay, it's been moved and seconded. All those in favour, please show. That's unanimous as well. Fine. Thank you very much. And kindly note that the next meeting is on the 21st of April. Hope to see you then. Cheerio.